Hey guys, and welcome to the Imperial Shuttle Studio Scale build video tutorial series. We're going to split this up into different chapters. The first chapter is going to cover the fuselage itself. So when you open your box, you're going to see that your fuselage comes with these two pieces attached already to this. So your first step is going to be to attach these two pieces with epoxy, and then you're going to see that there is a small seam on the side. So when you're using the epoxy, either use clamps or some tape to make sure that this is really nice and tight. And then you're going to want to sand these seams and do a little bit of pre-filling. And you could go ahead and prime just this side, just use some spray primer. That's a good way to test whether you've done your seams properly, is to do the filling, do the sanding, put a light coat of primer just across the front. If you still see it, you can sand that down. That should get you to where you need to go. Then whenever you do the full prime, you'll be ready to go. So that's step number one. What I'm going to do during this tutorial is I'm going to show you how to do things. I'm not going to glue everything together. The reason being, this one needs to be painted and everything has to be painted in sections. That's the best way to do it. So some things I will glue, some things I won't. On the bottom, we can go ahead and do a lot of gluing. So let's go ahead. I have grouped all of the parts that you're going to need to do the bottom. So you need both of these pieces here. You need this grill, this grating. You need this little square that has two lines on it. You need this tiny little square that has a circle indented on it. You need the two double cylinders. There's one, there's two, and then it's going to be really hard for you to see, but there's this tiny little cage looking piece, and you're going to need that one. So our first step is to take these two large pieces, and we're going to place them both on the bottom of the fuselage towards the front. Now, to align these, all you have to do is push it back to where it touches the detail area and then move it forward just a little bit. So you're going to have just a little bit of a gap there, okay? So we're just going to take some super glue. We're going to apply it towards the back. And then we can go ahead and press this down and scoot forward just a hair. If you are using super glue for your basic gluing, it is a great idea to get some accelerator. It's going to be hard to get accelerator underneath this, but there's a lot of smaller pieces that this was going to come in very handy, especially when you're gluing like the tips of things. So we're just going to do the same thing to the other side. Make sure we've got it nice and square. And just hold that there for just a little bit, and that's going to dry. Okay, next. Inside these two cavities, there's a tiny little hole pocket. You're going to want to drill that out on both sides and drill all the way through into the fuselage. These holes are for the larger LED light bulbs. At this point, you have to make a choice, whether you're going to do the full wiring job or whether you're going to put the lights in but not wire them up. The reason being, this is an easy build as far as the plastic goes. However, it is a pretty complex build when you consider the wiring. And the main reason for that is the wiring that goes into the wings is pretty intricate. And again, I'm going to show you how to do it. But if you're not comfortable with electrics and you don't feel like you're going to turn this thing on a lot, then it might behoove you at this point to just skip anything where I talk about wires and just place the lights where they're supposed to go, but they can be static. Like, for example, in my own personal display space, I don't turn on electronics very often. They're really cool, but I don't turn them on very often. So for me, I might not wire it up because it's easier. Now, of course, I'm also doing a whole bunch of painted versions of this that all will get wired up. So in that sense, I probably will wire mine just because it's going to be part of those. But anyway, so just a note, those need to be drilled out. Then you're going to take the two little cylinders, and one side of the cylinder, you're not going to be able to see this, but one side of the cylinder has a little cap. There's two caps. So that's the back. Now it's going to be a little bit tricky. You're going to take the back that has the cap on it, and you're going to place that right up to the edge of where the hole is. I'm sorry, it's going to be hard for you to see because it's such a tiny piece. And then you're just going to angle it up so it's only glued by the little back section. And I know, I'm sorry. I'll show you what it looks like after I glue it in place. So let me go ahead and glue that. And that'll give you a little bit better idea. So I'm going to put glue on the sides and on the bottom. Okay, that's in place. So now you can see, we'll zoom in just a little bit, you can see that they're angled, sticking up just on the edge. That's going to allow you to put the LEDs through from the back. So once that hole is drilled, I don't think I talked about this part. Once the hole is drilled, go ahead and put about 6 to 8 inches of black and red wire on here, negative and positive. Negative is black, red is positive. And go ahead and run that wire through the hole and glue these lights in. So you're going to have 2 of the larger LEDs. Those will go there. And you'll wire those in later. If you're not doing electronics, then you can just clip the leads off right here, and you don't even need to drill those holes, and you can just glue them straight in. All right, the next piece is the other smallest section, and that's that little grating piece. So that's going to go right here with the open end facing towards the back. So open faces this way, and it's going to go right in between the 2 little sticks, right in here, okay? Okay, so again, hard to see. We'll try to zoom in a little bit, but there it is. Next, your little tiny square. That goes, I'm going to use this LED as a little pointer. That goes here across these 2 parts, okay? It's going to go mostly on the front one, the one towards the front. But then it's going to touch, just barely touch, this side. So you can see there, it's just barely across the channel. The next piece is much easier. We've got the big grating piece here. So that goes right behind those 2 pieces. There's 3 pieces right there. It goes right here. And the angle faces towards the back. All right, lastly, we have the little box with the 2 lines on it. That is going to go in the very back. There's an open space. In between this detail area, you'll see just a hollow section here. The open end of this little box is going to face towards the back. Just like that. So that's all we need to worry about for the bottom. We'll deal with landing gear and whether you want to choose to do that or not. If you're going to do it in the flown position, you can go ahead and grab your bag that has the 2 pieces of closed landing gear, and you can just go ahead and glue those in place. If not, I would save the bags of the gear. You've got flaps, and then you've also got this little bag that has the bent support pieces. Just go ahead and save that for later. So let's move on to, let's go ahead and do the front, okay? You're gonna need your 2 guns. You're gonna need your 4 gun barrels, which are these ones right here. You'll need these 2 flaps, and you'll need 2 of these pieces. As far as the guns go, the end with the hollow port, because you can see that we actually drilled out the barrels, that's just gonna pop in and pop in. So just be careful when you glue these to make sure that they're nice and parallel. But that's a pretty simple job. So let's go ahead. We'll move this out of the way. Let's go ahead and put our 2 gun barrels together. And then we're going to take this hood, and the small end points towards the guns. The back end points towards the fuselage. And this just sits glued in place over the top. So it goes completely flush with this piece on the very end. It doesn't, there's a little circle here with what looks like a gap. It does not go over that. So you don't have to stretch it over that. It goes level, just like this, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. So when you're installing these actually serve as covers. So when I place this on here, you can see that there's 2 holes. They are offset. So on the back of these, you're going to see that the hole is not exactly in the center. So the small part, which is this side, goes towards the outside of the piece. And that's what allows them to sit in place. So they're just going to go in like that. Now our plan was to have these as a pretty tight fit so that they would just press in. So that doesn't look like this is the case on the casted part. So I will come back to you with a solution to make sure that these can be removable, because that's where you tighten up your wings or loosen your wings. So I'll get back to you on that. Next step are these. So the curved portion of the inside is towards the top, and then they just sit right on the inside edge of this little bump out circle. And they'll just glue in place. Okay. And that just looks just like that. Now, once these pieces are applied, these little guys, they have some nubs on one side. That faces the top. And they are just going to go basically splitting the seam of this top piece. So there's a little seam right here. So you're going to split the seam. we can go ahead and pause, and I can go ahead and install all this. Okay, so you can see in here, it's just right over the top of that seam. So if you're going to do any cleanup, it's a good time to do the cleanup before you put this shield on and before you put this on. So if you're going to fill any of those seams, go ahead and do that. The back. So we've got detail that goes here. I'm going to go ahead and take the top, and I'm going to put that in place. Because that's going to dictate some of the top detail. And then let's go ahead and turn this over. So this piece here goes in the center and it's going to sit on this piece. So you can go ahead and glue it to this piece. You've got two of these pieces. Each one is going to go right below the square. And then inside of it, these are little chairs. And you're going to take the long part, and that's going to sit inside this, and it basically creates kind of like an exhaust scoop. So that's going to get glued in place there. So let's start with these. So make sure that, because this is removable, make sure that this is nice and level on the front. You can just use your fingers before you glue this in, because this will act as a backstop for it. Okay, so you can see that in place there. And just make sure that that's nice and dry. I'm holding it with my finger here to make sure it doesn't slide forward. Now we're going to go ahead and place each one of these things. Remember that the way that it looks is you've got this in place, then you take the long part, and that's going to insert into the rectangle. So you're going to glue basically the back of the seat gets glued against the fuselage, the back of the fuselage, and it'll look like that. So there you go. You can see what that looks like. See, there's just a little gap between the seat and the floor and the bottom. And they're just tucked up in there. So you can use a toothpick, the end of a paintbrush, tweezers, whatever can help you get those into position. Okay. Next we have these little squiggly pieces. So they're going to go right here like this. So there is a very tight right-hand curve that you can see right there. That gets pressed up against the rectangle. And then the long end goes into a gap of this piece up here. So let me go ahead and put those on and I'll show you what that looks like. So there you go. You can see that they're coming up both sides like that. So once those are in place, now you just have to pay very close attention to when you take the top off, because it goes right in between those two gaps. So you don't want to pop these off. If you pop them off, you can just glue them back on, but just be aware of that. Lastly, on the back, we've got our gun. We've got a little cap for the gun. We've got 2 more of these pieces. And we've got 2 little pipes. Let's go ahead and put these 2 little pieces on. They are just going to go right next to this, and I would glue it just to the top. Next, we're going to glue these 2 little pipes on. This is your intricate part. So these 2 pipes go right below these 2 holes right here. And they'll attach to this, and then they'll attach to the floor. So just on the tips. The part that has the super tight right angle goes towards the top. And then the part that kind of has the sloping flat side goes towards the bottom. And these go right next to each other below these 2 circles. Okay, you can see that I removed the top. That made it a little bit easier. And there they are, right there. Okay. Last but not least, we have the gun. So, you've got a little tiny nubby, and then you've got the hollow part. So the nub goes into the holes. So let's go ahead and do that first. Once we've got our 2 gun barrels in there, all we have to do with this is just slip it into the hole. And then just very carefully glue this cap onto the back. You're just going to put a drop of glue right in the middle of the hole. And then I'm going to spray this. Press this up against it. And there you go. Now it can turn. Super easy. If you want a tighter fit, then you can just take a drill and just drill out that hole. So then you can press that cap all the way through and just glue the back. So you've got 2 options there. So that is it for the main part of this. So in the next chapter, we will go over the cockpit.